This is the Reporter's Notebook, hosted by Elaine Shane.
Welcome to this entry in the DTN Reporter's Notebook. I'm Elaine Shane. We're joined today by DTN's Editor-in-Chief, Greg Horstmeyer. Today we look at the results of the survey that was done for the DTN and the Progressive Farmers Agriculture Confidence Index. Greg, how is the index determined?
Well, we 3 times a year, in the spring, right before harvest, and then at year's end, we survey 500 random farmers, at least 500 to make the survey. And we ask them a series of questions about whether their situation is better today than it was a year ago, and whether they expect it to be better a year from now than what it is today. And there's a whole series of questions, but that's basically the answer that they can give us, one of it's better, it's the same, or it's worse.
So what was the overall index this time, especially compared to in the past?
Absolutely. The index right now is 134.8. That is up about 21 points from December when we did the last one, and it's up just a little bit, about 4.4 points from a year ago. The significance is that that's about the third highest on record, but the real significant trend is that previous to this survey, there was always a difference between where farmers put their present situation and their future expectations. They were either more positive about the present and pessimistic about the future, or the other way around. This time, for the first time ever since we've been doing the survey, farmers are positive both about their present situation and about the future.
So what do you think this is saying about the attitudes of the farmers?
It's an interesting thing because now I would want to say we're sitting here today. China has just announced the threat of tariffs against soybeans. So we have to remember that these questions were asked in very early March. There was talk of tariff wars, but no tariffs had been assessed yet. There was just a lot of conversation about those things. So we have to put this in historical context. What we think it's saying, with farmers both being positive about today and about the future, is that they have sort of accepted the new norm. Things have sort of settled out. Land prices we're seeing have come down just a little bit. Rental prices continue to come down. Input costs have flattened out. We can look at fertilizer prices. They're on the uptick just a little bit, but really they're way down from where they were historically. So farmers have sort of said, well, this must be the new normal, and as long as crop prices aren't seeming to be going way down, then that's okay. I feel pretty good about where I'm at. I've got myself figured out.
Now, did you see any regional differences?
Definitely, and that's something that we really should say too. Nationally, that index is 134. If you look at the Midwest, and just take Midwest crop farmers, the index is 116. So still in the positive range. We say anything above 100, which is the baseline, is seen as optimistic. So still positive, but much less positive than would be the nation as a whole. And if you ask, when we look at what they said about their present situation, Midwest farmers rated that at a 74, which is very pessimistic, but 40 points higher than it was a year ago. So everything's relative.
What's driving those regional differences?
Well, we think, for the Midwest, corn and soybean prices definitely being at low levels is probably the biggest driver. Livestock has come down a little bit. When these questions were being asked, we were just seeing some signs of the hog market beginning to come off a little bit, and it has dropped some since then. When we look at the Southwest or the Southeast, where the diversity of crop mix is different, where specialty crops come into a little bit more to play, where again, the hog market was pretty decent. Where the hog market is in the Southeast, that we see there, the cattle and ranches in the Southwest. Those numbers are all in the much more optimistic range, and you'd expect them to be just because of the diversity of the crop mix.
You're saying with the commodity, you're seeing the differences with the cattle and with the crops. How is that comparing to the past? Overall, not just by region.
A really good point. Crop farmers as a group, if a farmer recognized themselves as a primarily crop farmer, those numbers are at 136, so below the or actually above the overall. But a big change in terms of where we were from a year ago. Again, we would sort of say that that's we're kind of getting used to this situation in crop prices as a new normal. So it's hard to compare the past to the present, other than there are more positive about things. Livestock was at a 132, which was still in that upper range. We expect that's going to start to come down, though, when we do this again in August, because livestock prices have come off since then.
What else do you think might be influencing the farmers overall this time compared to in the past?
It's a really good question. And I come back to the issue of, since the 2016 election and since some of the things that have gone on the political spectrum, that has to be working into the psyche of farmers, that we're in this for the long haul and we're seeing some stabilization. The tough part about it is the questions that we asked are financially based. We ask them about their financial situation. And what the economists that look at this tell us is that while we're asking about financials, they must be continuing to answer more and more based on politics and emotion. And when you talk about optimism and pessimism, what's in your gut, what's in your heart, what's in your head, sometimes conflict. So, yeah.
What about the agribusiness confidence index that we do at the same time? What were you seeing for results there?
We at the same time we ask these questions, we also call a different group of agribusinesses, ag retailers, equipment dealers, those kinds of folks. And that continues to be fairly flat. It's right around 111, 112, 113. That's where it's been for the last couple of surveys. And not to be unexpected, because sales of equipment, if you're a grain elevator operator, you have had grain to sell over the last couple of years. We've been producing a lot of it. If you're an equipment dealer, you've sort of reset from the days of 2012 and 2013 by now, and your farmers are beginning to come back into the marketplace a little bit. They have to eventually replace those tractors after they're 2 or 3 years old or do other things. So they're fairly stable, and we would expect that to be stable. We still want to look at those numbers, though, because they would be, if that ever changes, either to the positive or the negative, that's sort of I hate the phrase, but the canary in the coal mine that something really big is afoot.
Now, you also interviewed some bankers. What did you hear from them?
Talked to them just in terms of after the survey. So we didn't survey them, but we did talk to some of the folks in the banking world, because going into winter, we were hearing a lot of concern, a lot of worry that were farmers going to be in the shape that they needed to be. And what we're hearing is that there's some differences. There's a lot more use of financing from seed companies and chemical companies and equipment companies. So the sellers are doing more financing than just banks. We're seeing, if we went to the trade shows this year, we're seeing more of the insurance companies, the life insurance companies and others coming back into the lending market because they're seeing some opportunities there. We haven't seen that since the 80s. And I talked to that specifically about that with some bankers, and they say, yeah, they're definitely seeing those things. But overall, here we are, 4th of April, farmers were mostly getting the financing that they need, and one way or the other, they're ready to go to the field this fall. So again, that worry is still out there. What's going to happen this fall? What's going to happen, especially now with what the sabers that are being rattled in the trade world? So there's definite concern that's out there. But as we go to the field this year, we're ready to go, and things are rolling right along.
What type of reaction have you been getting to the index since it was released a few days ago?
It's an interesting question. Yeah, we do. I get the role reversed. I get called by radio and TV stations and newspapers to talk about this. It's kind of an odd thing to be on that side of the desk, but a proud thing, because we do this as a corporate effort from DTN to get a feel for where farmers are at on things. And they've been asking some of the same questions that you were asking. It's, we're hearing doom and gloom. Why do you think that farmers are still so positive? And I've basically told them the same thing I've told you. I also would say that this is the spring survey, and that tends to be positive. We always, with a new crop to put out, we always tend to think, there's got to be something that's better ahead. Let's just hope winter leaves us so that we can finally get some of those things done.
You mentioned this is a spring survey. When do we do the next one?
The next one, the survey will be done in late July, early August, and we'll release those numbers in August just ahead of harvest.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
With Greg Horsmeyer, I'm Elaine Shane, and that's today's entry in the DTN Reporter's Notebook. Thanks for joining us, and have a good evening from DTN.
This has been the Reporter's Notebook from the DTN Progressive Farmer Newsroom.